Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. It's day 2 of the court case brought by the parliamentary opposition, who maintains that the National Identification Bill is unconstitutional. The case is being heard by a 3-member panel led by Chief Justice Brian Sykes and includes Lisa Palmer Hamilton and David Batts. On Monday, the Attorney General had a difficult time refuting claims that the National Identification System creates a level of inequality before the law. Our reporter Dwayne Anderson is at the Supreme Court and now joins us live. Dwayne?
Hi, Andrea. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to our viewers on TVJ as well as those on onespotmedia.com. So as you just said in your introduction, the PNP, the opposition, has sought the court's intervention in determining the legality of elements of the proposed NIDS system, as we're calling it for short. Today is, of course, the second day. And one of the points raised by Chief Justice Brian Sykes was why no data is shown proving how much the government loses from people not having an ID or an ID card such as a driver's license. He said if the government had shown, say, for example, it loses $20 million or $40 million per year due to people not having an ID, then their argument for a compulsory ID system would be stronger. So he said without that sort of financial explanation, the law seems draconian, especially because it would try to lock up people who decide not to give up their fingerprints and other biometric data. Of course, Brian Sykes at this time was speaking about the matter of fingerprints, which is one of the sticking points in the matter. He said fingerprints, just like in voting, the people should have the right not to participate. And in fact, if they wish to live in the bush as a caveman and not have an ID, then that should be a right that is afforded to them. And the government should not try to lock them up as a result of them not wanting to share their information. So things are getting interesting here inside at the Supreme Court. Courtroom 9 is where the sitting is being held. It is crammed. Well, right now it isn't crammed because it's now on a break for lunch. But everyone people in the legal circuit are trying to get an earful of this matter because it is getting interesting. But right now, the sitting, as I said, is on a break, and I will have a lot more in this matter later at 7 in primetime news. So until then, Andrea, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Dwayne, our reporter reporting live from the Supreme Court. The Trelawny police that have made another dent into the Bunkers Hill gang operating in the parish. 3 members of that gang were killed during a shootout on Monday and 2 firearms were seized. TVJ's Shamela Pullen reports.
Residents in the Bunkers Hill and Friendship communities have been living in fear. Those areas have been on the watch list of the Trelawny police for some time now. Head of Operations for the Trelawny Division, Deputy Superintendent Winston Milton, says there has been an increase in criminal activities, which included murders, shootings, extortion, and predial larceny. As a result, they increased their presence in those areas. So on Monday, sometime after 5 in the afternoon, the police were conducting foot patrol in the community of Friendship when they came under attack.
The Friendship and Bunkers area are areas of concern in the division due to increase in gang activities by the Bunkers gang there. While on foot patrol, they came under gunfire from men in that area. The men repelled the attack.
When the gun battle ended, 3 men were found suffering from gunshot wounds.
These men are Agent Walker, OC Lippy, Robert Miller, OC PG or Tyler, and a 3rd man who is yet to be identified. The 2 identified men are remnants of the ski mask gang, which operated in the Lilliput area of St. James.
The Trelawny police are continuing their search for other members of the Bunkers Hill gang. However, DSP Milton says, though unfortunate, the deaths of the men is expected to bring a level of peace to the Friendship and Bunkers Hill areas.
The communities in question are deep rural ones. They are not known to have a level of violence that we have seen within the recent months. So certainly, this gang has been significantly disrupted. We expect some amount of disruption in their activities, and that he believes will lead to some decline in criminal activities in these areas.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Head of the St. Anne Police, Senior Superintendent Michael Smith, says people are now loveless. SSP Smith says young people in particular are being raised without love in their hearts, and that is the reason for so many atrocities in the country.
People refuse to exercise and demonstrate love. It doesn't matter what is happening around you. It doesn't matter what is happening to you. I'm here to tell you as a servant of the living God that if we demonstrate love, love is one of the biggest and best investment one can ever make.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang has labelled the recent attacks on children as shameful and un-Jamaican. This follows the untimely death of 14-year-old Raven Wilson. Dr. Chang says the nature of the attacks is appalling and reflects a low in the level of consciousness in society. The National Security Minister will be engaging the Police High Command to address the disturbing trend. The mutilated body of Raven was found by residents in a plastic bag on Sunday, meters away from her home in the Top Road community of St. Anne's Bay. She was a third-form student of Ocherius High in St. Anne. Attorney Jerome Dixon has been disbarred by the General Legal Counsel GLC. The decision was handed down earlier this month. He was brought before the council by another attorney who was acting on behalf of a client. Mr. Dixon reportedly mishandled a transaction from a judgment debt against his client, leading to him being found guilty of professional misconduct. To date, Mr. Dixon has failed to pay over the balance of $2.5 million from the $4.6 million judgment awarded in 2015. The GLC says all 3 hearings were held in Mr. Dixon's absence. He submitted a letter ahead of the first meeting indicating he had suffered an injury. Mr. Dixon also promised to submit a medical report and requested that the hearing be adjourned. Prosecutors are submitting into evidence video and audio recordings taken by income from Constable Collis Chucky Brown, one of the cops implicated in the Clarendon Police Death Squad case. Constable Brown is on trial for 3 counts of murder, conspiracy to murder, and wounding with intent. He's accused of killing Robert Gutty Dawkins in January 2009, as well as Dwayne Douglas and Andrew Ferron in December 2012. Indicom said Constable Brown came to the unit in August 2013 and confessed to being a member of the police death squad in Clarendon. The defense had applied to the trial judge not to admit the material into evidence, but the request was rejected. The governing Jamaica Labour Party JLP is blaming the People's National Party PNP for what it calls the deplorable condition of some communities. The JLP says when the PNP was in power, infrastructure development was never at the forefront of its plans. TVJ's Ashane Masters picks up that story.
18 years of a PNP government in one stretch from 1989 to 2007, and some communities are still not viable, according to Northwest St. James Member of Parliament Dr. Horace Chang, who was addressing the East Central St. James JLP conference on Sunday afternoon. He charged that for the years that the PNP was in government, little to no work was done to uplift certain communities in the country.
Go down in a South St. Andrew and Southwest St. Andrew, and trust me, even if somebody walk down is ashamed to how our fellow Jamaicans are living there. Those are the areas where people were represented by the People's National Party for nearly 40 years.
Dr. Chang says despite calls for social intervention by citizens in those communities, the opposition had refused to address the dire consequences of the living conditions. He claimed that in his constituency, when it was under the leadership of the PNP, little to no work was carried out.
But the retirement, PNP sit on it for years. They have some group over the Labour and PNP man named Allen. Talk every day. Spend money and there's no work for the money. But no, Labour Party in power. Ask the people from Greenville what is happening. Ask them what's happening with retirement. SO is here, but we are giving the people the infrastructure and the opportunity that they need to build a better quality of life. All the PNP can do is talk foolish and tell lie.
Ashane Masters, TVJ News.
The Trelawny Municipal Corporation says more stringent rules will be implemented to curtail illegal vending in Falmouth, which is the capital. Mayor of Falmouth, Colin Gager, outlined some of the changes in a recent interview with TVJ News.
New rules and regulation will be in place.
Mayor of Falmouth, Colin Gager, announcing the new tough stance being taken towards vending in the parish capital. According to the mayor, illegal vending has been a major problem, and so the municipal corporation implemented the new stipulations.
Vending in the town of Falmouth will be a no-no. We are getting out all of the food vendors. The only people that we are leaving in the town is the fruit vendors, who will be operating on Petticoat Lane there, Officer's Alley.
He says all other vendors are now being directed to the market. But based on previous issues there as well, the market also has new measures in place, which led to recent protests.
The new policy now is that when you come in, you must pay at the gate. Many other people, last week we had it a free run. So many other people come this week, they are expecting to get a free run also. So some of them did not want to pay. Some of them didn't have their receipt to show us that they had paid and all of that. So that created a sort of pile-up.
Mr. Gage says discussions are taking place to finalize the clearing and new operations of the market, and also for re-establishing the town as a pedestrian-friendly area.
We want it to remain that way. We want people should be able to free to walk up and about their business, sit, rest, chat, maybe have a little drink, make sure your thing is thrown into the garbage receptacle that is there, and all of that. So it isn't for selling or for you to be bumping into somebody, or cooking is supposed to be going on, and your food is being spilled on people. No, it must be an area where you can come in, sit, relax, chat, move about. That's what we want for the town of Falmouth.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Trinidad and Tobago's Housing Minister Edmund Dillon says it's too early to ascertain the damage and compensation for residents of Greenville in Trinidad. Details from Trinidad's CNC3.
Relief poured in for residents of Greenville today. The area was battered by flood waters over the weekend. Today, it was inundated by officials from various government agencies assessing the damage. Many residents were also being processed for grants and other forms of state assistance. Housing Minister Edmund Dillon says this is his second visit and he empathizes with those affected.
As we speak right now, there are two types of interviewers on the ground, assessment teams on the ground right now, from the agency and from social development. They're literally going house to house, interviewing every single residents who have been affected, get the data, get the information, because there are differences between from one to the next. So each person must be treated on their own accord. And so based on the assessment from both the social development and the agency, then we can make for decisions in terms of compensation and so on going forward.
Cleanup efforts were ongoing in the community, with trucks and heavy equipment from the private sector and regional corporations. The housing minister says requests for compensation and for residents to be relocated can only be considered when there's a final assessment. He added that the Ministries of Housing and Works and Transport are looking at ways to mitigate future flooding at Greenville and Oropun.
Then looking at an engineering solution to prevent the reoccurrence of this kind of flooding in the Greenville area and in the Oropun area. Because at the end of the day, there must be an engineering solution, and that's what we're being pursued right now, to prevent the reoccurrence of this kind of flooding in the future.
In news overseas, migrants remain focused on their marathon effort. Thousands of Central Americans are moving towards the U.S. border in search of a better future. Details from the CNN.
Roughly 7,000 migrants are in southern Mexico, marching north toward the U.S. However, there's a roadblock hundreds of miles ahead.
We got to stop them at the border.
In a series of tweets Monday, President Trump said he would declare a national emergency over the migrant caravans.
You're going to find MS-13, you're going to find Middle Eastern, you're going to find everything. And guess what? We're not allowing them in our country.
We have 10 individuals suspected or known terrorists that try to enter our country illegally every day. This is a problem that the president's been talking about for a long time, and certainly one he wants to see addressed.
There are no official reports that suggest Middle Easterners are in the caravans. Critics say the president is overreacting.
He's making it sound like they're breaking through the border. This is hysteria on his part. Let him calm down and do what we were supposed to do.
Mr. Trump also says he'll reduce funds to 3 Central American countries because of the caravans.
And that aid that we do have helps them with law enforcement, drug interdiction, and programs to help that population stay there. And cutting those programs indiscriminately, those benefit us as well.
And in sports, former champions Clarendon College headlined the teams to be in action across 7 matches to be played in the quarter-final round of the Issa da Costa Cup competition on Tuesday as they take on Old Harbour High. Kickoff is set for 3 p.m. at the Juicy Complex. The curtain raiser will feature former Ben Francis Cup champions Lennon High going up against former Da Costa Cup winners St. Elizabeth Technical at 1 p.m. Last season semi-finalist Dint Hill Technical will entertain Petersfield at the Froome Complex at 3 p.m, while Mogotty High will play Froome High in the opening game at 1. 2017 Da Costa Cup champions Cornwall College will meet Charlemont High at the Bramwell Clark Sports Complex. Manchester High take on St. James High at Jarrett Park and Port Antonia battle Mile Gully at Carter Park. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.